Okay. Part 5. Socializing with Friend Bell Tag. Lady Rosemine, might we ask for another blessing this year? Lenore asked, stepping forward as representative of the apprentice knights playing dinner this afternoon. There is a chance that Professor Farlarn will obstruct us again this year. At once I recalled our previous struggle against the Hundertalung. The apprentice knights all looked uneasy, but I shook my head at them and said, you came in 6th during training, even without my blessings, no? You have the strength to succeed, and depending on me will only stifle your growth. In other words, I had no intention of blessing them again. Understood, Lenore replied, backing down at once. She had asked only to be sure, but Cornelius lacked that context. Why aren't you blessing them this year, he asked, blinking at me. Dunkelfelger will be using their blessings, so should we not use ours? Your decision here will have a significant impact on how we perform. We do not want Ehrenfest to rely on me forever. Those from Dunkelfelger have learned to obtain blessings themselves by cooperating with one another. Not to mention we've agreed to keep Ehrenfest from rising any further up the duchy rankings, so I chose to keep that to myself, though. It was something we had discussed in private within Anastasia's sound-blocking field, and the news probably would have impacted everyone's morale. Dunkelfelger's adults are going to perform a demonstration of the ritual after the last dinner game, are they not? Every duchy will be able to learn from their example then. They will need to cooperate to earn their own blessings, so I must ask that Ehrenfest strive toward the same. Otherwise, our apprentice knights will end up being the only ones who do not obtain divine protections, despite this being our research to begin with. The king had promised that those who wished to repeat the ritual for obtaining divine protections could do so after the graduation ceremony, and we could do the ritual again once we returned to Ehrenfest. However, these retakes would be meaningless if the knights didn't pray enough and offer up a lot of mana. The amount of mana offered is the key to success, I said. Learn to obtain blessings on your own. Understood, the apprentice knights declared in unison. Seeing that, Angelica muttered, Lady Rosemine, will I also become stronger by doing this ritual? The idea of everyone becoming more capable by learning to obtain their own blessings had evidently caught her interest. Obtaining blessings will make you stronger for that particular moment, I explained. Dunkelfelger's ritual grants blessings from multiple gods at once, so it's especially potent. And on top of that, if you perform it sincerely on a regular basis, it will become easier for you to obtain divine protections. You still need to memorize the names of the gods, though, Angelica. Memorize? Angelica must have really hated the studying she did in the temple because her expression turned pensive. Can Stenluck do it for me, she sighed, stroking the face on her hip. As always, Stenluck's sheath only looked big enough for a dagger. Few who saw it would expect him to be a longsword. If you obtain many divine protections, then you will be able to use your mana more efficiently, and Stenluck will grow more, I said. As you are a mana blade user, this opportunity could grant you more strength than it would most others, but well... What? It makes me use less mana, Angelica asked, looking at me like nobody had ever told her that before. Apparently, even while redoing her studies, it had never occurred to her that memorizing the names of the gods was to her own benefit. Daniel explained this to you before, Angelica, Cornelius exclaimed. Perhaps... Either way, I will start taking my efforts to memorize the names of the gods seriously. You better. I'm glad to see you're finally motivated, I said. If you had found this drive a bit earlier, Daniel wouldn't have suffered even half as much, Cornelius added, clearly sympathizing with his fellow retainer. Trying to teach Angelica when she wasn't interested was said to be tortuous. It was soon time for the introductory tournaments to recommence, so we made our way back to the arena. En route, Cornelius continued to tell me how much Daniel was struggling, now with Hartman chiming in as well. During the morning section of the tournament, the top-ranking duchies would mobilize to greet duchies they were on good terms with or wished to grow closer to. Ehrenfest hadn't mobilized at all in that time, and if we wasted the afternoon as well, we wouldn't be able to visit anyone. Should we not start greeting others, I asked Sylvester, looking around the duchies preparing for afternoon mobilization. He glared at me. You think we should go around greeting others at the same time as the bottom-ranking duchies? Even when we've been told to start acting like a top-ranking duchy? Do you expect us to go back to the top-ranking duchies we've already spoken to and reopen business discussions? I frantically shook my head. The last thing I wanted to do was reignite these business discussions. My intention had only been to peek at the other duchies' research and see what their socializing was like. Take a break and watch some dinner, he said. Now that you've met the king, you can't skip out on the sword award ceremony. But the bottom-ranking duchies are going to be greeting us, right? Will I even have time to rest? I repeated this morning would hardly be revitalizing. Based on last year, I'd like to think you would at least have some, but it depends on how much of an impact your joint research had. We were only crediting the participants as helpers, but I was told our research had broken new ground in both its scale and the fact that it had afforded the people the chance to have their name listed next to royalty. It had been very impactful as a result. Duchies like that had needed to send apprentice scholars instead of archduke candidates were even acting like the scholars had received an otherwise unattainable honor. We also need to consider that the duchies, knocked away by Shutsaria's shield, probably hate and resent you, Sylvester continued, his voice quieter than before. Naturally, I don't expect anything to happen here, especially with all the guards around, but you never know. He looked around at the nearby sovereign guards. Anyone who caused a fuss when the Knight's Order was already so on edge about an attack would surely face a much harsher punishment than Emmerdink had last year. The Sovereign Knight's Order really is tense. Even the king himself would view them as incompetent if the Interduchy tournament is interrupted 2 years in a row. Dinner shall now recommence, Rolfin announced. The second half will be a tad more elaborate than the first. Everyone please enjoy. In short, the professors were going to be using more niche enemies for this round, having been inspired by Ehrenfest's battle against the Hunter Taelung last year. They believed it was also important to know how to deal with rare Fabies upon encountering them. This will put Ehrenfest at a significant advantage, I said. Last year's Hunter Taelung spurred everyone to study hard in case Professor Farlam attempted another trick. Perhaps the other duchies prepared as well, fearing the same fate, Cornelius said. I paused for a moment to consider his words. It was possible that Dunkelfelger had made such preparations, but to my knowledge, they had focused entirely on increasing the efficiency of their pillar-forming ritual. Ahrensbach came a call. They would be playing the first game of the second half, and Hersher was in charge of summoning their Fabeast. I was very curious to see what she would produce. May I go watch? I asked Sylvester. He paused for a beat and then said, Sure, I'll call you back if we get any important visitors, so go spectate with your apprentice guard knights. As instructed, I went with my retainers to the audience stands. Just like last year, Villarda prepared something for me to stand on, and the moment I climbed up onto it, I realized that my line of sight was higher than before. I'm growing! Yay! She's growing! That's great! I hate that she still looks like a child. That would suck. I watched the grounds below, still smug that I could see more than last year. The light violet capes were all standing in position while Hersher produced her staff and channeled Mana into a magic circle. The circle flashed, and atop it appeared a massive Taufrosk. A Taufrosk, I exclaimed. Do you recognize it, Lady Rosemine? Angelica asked. Well... I gave a vague nod. They were the frogs I had encountered when collecting ingredients for my Derive. I couldn't give any details since that hunt had been a secret, but I remembered our battle well. They even split apart when attacked. Goosebumps rose all over my skin as I remembered the tiny, warty frogs raining down on us, and have I almost been swallowed by it alongside Bridget. They have similar attributes to the Hunter Taelung from last year, I explained. It was clear that Ahrensbach's apprentice knights were unsure what to do with this new foe. To make matters worse for them, this was speed dinner. Their floundering was causing them precious time. The knights eventually decided on a preliminary attack, but it didn't appear to do much damage. Weaker blows were just reflected back at them. Let's do it. Right. They must have sensed that their efforts were going nowhere because two apprentice knights started directing mana into their swords, which began glowing all sorts of colors. They were going to strike the Taufrosk with a massive attack. Everyone else readied their shields as the two apprentice knights swung their swords, unleashing attacks of all the hues of the rainbow. So there's more people who are omni-elemental, or at least have more elements. Wow. Okay. Two beams of mana swirled and twisted toward the Taufrosk, then erupted in an ear-splitting explosion that caused a shockwave. We did it! Not yet, the circle's still glowing. The magic circle would fade when all the Fabies were dead, but it was still shining. One knight honed his senses, conscious that the battle wasn't over yet, only for a deluge of tiny Taufrost to rain down all over the arena. Yeah, get all of them! Don't let a single one! The apprentice knights began flying all over the place, killing as many of the tiny Taufrosts as they could. Their targets, being small, made them easy to defeat, but it also made them hard to find, especially when they were spread over such a wide area. This is the same situation that Ehrenfest was in last year, I mused. Professor Hersher's revenge, perhaps. This is still a much easier battle, Lenore said. Hunter Taelungs must be reduced to their smallest size before they can be defeated, and they refuse with ease, but these are not concerns when fighting Taufrosks. Judith nodded. If she was trying to get revenge, she should have given them a Hunter Taelung too. That thing was a real pain. But Hunter Taelungs are native to Ahrensbach, Matthias added. We can conclude that she chose a Fabiest that shares its attributes, but is still unfamiliar to the students. Everyone was satisfied with that explanation, and we all returned to watching the match. From the look of things, it'd still be some time before they eliminated all the frogs. Lady Rosemont came Lesla's voice. She had just come over. The Ob is calling for you. Friend-Beltag's Archducal couple has arrived. Please return to the socializing spot. As I went to inform my guard knights, I noticed that Hartman was no longer with us. Even as I looked around, he was nowhere to be seen. Oh, I said, I don't see Hartman. He went to greet Clarissa's parents, Lesletta explained. Evidently, he had gone to see Dunkelfelger while I was watching the dinner match. Do you think he'll be able to convince them safely? There's no need to worry. Prince Anastasius and the first wife of Dunkelfelger have forbidden them from playing dinner, and their discussion will primarily focus on what to do if Clarissa forces her way into Ehrenfest alone. Hartman had to be ready in case the engagement was cancelled, and Clarissa went rogue, so there was a lot to be discussed, including how to contact her parents, how to return her, and what arrangements to make if a visit to Ehrenfest proved necessary. Lesletta continued, her parents have been at a loss ever since deducing that Clarissa's main interest is you and not her relationship. Upon arriving back at our table, we found Sylvester sitting with Friend-Beltag's Archducal couple. Rosemont, he said. These are Ob, Friend-Beltag, and my elder sister, Constance. So this is Lady Constance, huh? She was Sylvester's second oldest sister, and was one of the rare few individuals whose personality I already knew, even though this was our first encounter. After all, in Royal Academy love stories, she had played a major role in mediating her brother's romance. Her facial features reminded me more of Sylvester than Detlinde or Georgine, and she was even giving me the same intrigued look that Sylvester had given me when we first met. They weren't completely alike, though. Constance might have resembled the previous Ob, but she had blonde hair and blue eyes. Beside her was Ob Friend-Beltag, who looked so much like Charlotte that one might have assumed he was her father. He had a kind expression on his face from what I could see. I knelt in front of our two guests and performed our first greetings. I am Rosemont. May I pray for the blessing and appreciation of the serendipitous meeting ordained by the harsh judgment of Eviglib, the god of life. You may. Once I was done and seated, Friend-Beltag looked at me with a gentle smile. We always camp here during the Interdicty tournament, but this is our first time speaking with you. Rudiger is sad that you two so rarely get to meet, Constance added, likewise smiling. There is so much about the temple and religious ceremonies that he wishes to discuss. My impression of Rudiger was reasonably positive. He had called for me to be allowed to attend the tea parties for cousins, plus he had apparently gone to the temple and helped improve his duchy's harvest. Had I not returned to Ehrenfest for the dedication ritual, I surely would have spoken with him more than Detlinde during our tea party. I cannot see Lady Florencia here. Is she not feeling well? Constance asked in a hushed voice, paying close attention to her surroundings. Florencia was Friend-Beltag's younger sister, so not seeing her here was a natural cause for concern. That is not something I can make public yet, but it might be important for you to know. In truth, she has started to show signs of pregnancy. Oh! She's pregnant! Yes! Rosemont's gonna get a new sibling! Maybe. Oh, boy! So that's why she fainted. Surely it wasn't the messages that was causing it, it was just the condition. So we are being more careful with her health. We are keeping an eye on her for now and plan for her to participate tomorrow if she feels well enough, but... What? I exclaimed, my eyes wide. That revelation had come out of nowhere. Sylvester glared at me and said to keep quiet. Nobles generally kept their children a secret until they were baptized, and on the rare occasion where they did tell someone sooner, it surely wasn't during the Interdicty tournament. I was glad to have a new little brother or sister on the horizon, but I couldn't celebrate here. Instead, I settled for wiggling in my seat, my hand clapped over my mouth to keep all the things I wanted to say from spilling out. A new little brother or sister? Now I've really gotta make more black and white picture books for babies. I've gotta! While I was starting to get baby fever, Constance looked at Sylvester in exasperation. A pregnancy now of all times. Do you truly intend to take no other wives? I acknowledge your dedication to loving only Lady Florencia, but you are both too old and your duchy is too high rank for you to continue this little fantasy. How long will it be until you grow up? She had suddenly become the embodiment of an older sister chastising her little brother. It wasn't intentional, Sylvester responded with a sulky pout. It just happened. I expect this is my best gifts, divine protection, bestowed upon me so that I don't need to take a second wife. You always cling to the most convenient interpretation, Constance sighed, resting a hand on her forehead. Friend-Beltag gave a wry smile. I, for one, am relieved that you still care so deeply for Florencia, even with your duchy's new ranking. His little sister's position was precarious enough already, so he had feared that her treatment would worsen, or that there would be drama with the second or third wife, as Ehrenfest pulled further ahead of Friend-Beltag in the duchy rankings. I heard that Lord Vertiger is participating in Friend-Beltag's religious ceremonies, I said. But how exactly is your duchy faring? Friend-Beltag had decided not to play dinner against Dunkelfelger, so none of their students had participated in the dedication ritual. I wanted to know how they were doing since, unlike other duchies, they had participated in rituals on their own. Our harvest improved considerably after Rudiger started performing the temple ceremonies, so we have since been having other Archduke candidates and their retainers accompany him, while the Giebs actively fill the chalices to enrich their lands as much as possible, and thanks to your joint research with Dunkelfelger, we will likely be able to perform the rituals more efficiently. That's wonderful to hear, I said, but did you not face a lot of resistance when you proposed that Archduke candidates start entering the temple and participating in rituals? Our dedication ritual here in the Royal Academy taught me that the temple is looked down upon all over the country. It was disfavored in Fremdeltag as well, Constance said with a smile. However, our situation was dire enough that we were willing to try anything to improve things. Anything. Fremdeltag smiled as well. Constance was the first to accept Rudiger's suggestion. Those with Ehrenfest's blood made the most surprising decisions at times, such as assigning one of their Archduke candidates to be the High Bishop, or having their own children perform temple ceremonies. And with your trend of doing one new thing after another, Lady Rosemine, I must conclude that you were the quintessential Ehrenfest Archduke candidate. He went on to explain that Fremdeltag's temple was being reformed so that nobles could enter and everyone could find themselves more at ease there. Distaste for the temple has certainly gone down since the royal family performed their religious ceremony, Constance said. We believe this might be a good opportunity to teach the nobles of duchies that lost the Civil War to participate in their spring prayers and harvest festivals. Fremdeltag's previous attempts to convince them had proven unsuccessful, but the newfound interest in religious ceremonies would surely make them more willing to listen. Perhaps next year, she continued, Ehrenfest could do research with Fremdeltag. Our duchies could examine changes in the duchy's crop yield after sending its Archduke candidates around its central district and having them participate in spring prayer and the harvest festival. Our own harvest has increased 2 years in a row, so I am convinced that our findings would be worth spreading far and wide. What do you think, Sylvester? Research is done by the student's sister, Sylvester replied with a half smile. What do you think, Lady Rosamund? She asked me, her blue eyes brimming with anticipation. Fremdeltag and Ehrenfest were the only duchies that had witnessed the effects of one's Archduke candidates touring their central district. I didn't mind the thought of our duchies collaborating if we provided evidence that this technique resulted in a greater harvest. Then we can motivate more duchies to reform their temples. But I wanted to dedicate my time to researching new magic tools for my own library. This is my only uninterrupted year in the Royal Academy, I said. Thus, it would be better to have Wilfrid or Charlotte lead the research instead. I will provide what assistance I can from the side. In that case, you must speak before Lord Wilfrid and Lady Charlotte at once. Do excuse us, Lady Rosamund. And so, Fremdeltag's archducal couple went to Wilfrid and Charlotte's table. I watched them go, then whispered to Sylvester. Lord Rudiger has been frequenting the temple for some time, but as soon as the royal family changed public perception of religious ceremonies, they chose to propose this research that only they could do. Fremdeltag may have dropped in the rankings, but it sure is a former top-ranking duchy. Fremdeltag has always been a smart one, he muttered in response. Once their harvest is more stable and their population recovers, they'll climb back up in no time. We'll need to bring our nobles up to speed so we don't lose our own position in the process. Dinner and Dunkelfelger's demonstration. Ehrenfest the apprentice knight said, We are up next. It was almost time for Ehrenfest to play dinner, so Sylvester and I got up from our table and went to the audience stands. Knights wearing Glissenmeyer's dark brown capes were flying around still partway through their match. I wondered what some babies were fighting, and then I saw 5 yellow spiky balls bouncing around the arena. The heck are those? Sylvester asked, glaring down at the arena. Tonaldales, I replied. They're those cursed things. They were fake creatures, well, fake fish, that reminded me a lot of a pufferfish or a sea urchin with a tail. I still clung to that bitter memory of not being able to eat any during the fish dissection due to their meat being full of poison. Isn't this an easy win? Sylvester asked. They don't seem very dangerous, especially in such a big arena. Not at all, I replied. They shoot their long, thin, poisonous spines in all directions, so they're very dangerous if you don't know the right countermeasures. The apprentice knights watching the match all nodded in enthusiastic agreement. These knights of the ground over there were taken out by the first attack, I continued pointing. The others could stay far away and wait for the Tonadales to suffocate without water, or they could surround them with shields of wind until they finished shooting off their spines, but neither approach is a quick one. Our knights watched with stiff expressions as the Glissenmeyer knights struggled with the Tonadales. They really didn't want to face an unfamiliar fey-beast. Lenore, who was in charge of operating intelligence, looked no less uneasy. What will they summon for us? I never thought I would feel this tense about playing in the Energy Tournament, she uttered. But before she could say much else, Glissenmeyer complete. Next up, Ehrenfest. In response to Roffin's booming voice, Ehrenfest apprentice knights climbed onto their high beasts and went down to the bottom of the arena. They flew once around the perimeter of the grounds, their dark yellow capes flapping behind them before settling into place. Gundalf stepped forward. It seemed we didn't have Fraulein this year, which was good news. Given the screeching ordonnance that she had sent over earlier, I was sure she would have given us the worst fey beast she could imagine. I see we do not have Professor Fraulein this year, I said. That is quite a relief. Wolfried shook his head. Nah, Professor Gundolf's the scary one. He knows about all sorts of Fey beasts. Lord Wolfried is correct, Ignaz agreed. During our joint research, when he learned that paper can be made from Fey plants, he began striving to learn as much about them as possible. Oh, great. Apparently, Ignaz had then needed to endure a round of very intense questioning about the Fey plants found in Ehrenfest. He hadn't been able to answer very well, which had earned him a very exasperated, "Are you at all invested in this research?" "Don't give them a Trombe to fight!" "They better not!" "Still, there sure are a lot of people watching this year," Wolfried said. I gazed around at the audience stands. As he said, there were loads more spectators than usual, and they seemed a lot more excited, likely because the rare Fey beasts of minor species that had appeared thus far had produced continually unexpected results, and they couldn't predict what was coming up next. They wouldn't! No, they wouldn't! They wouldn't do a Trombe or something like that, because that sucks up mana. Just like a Ternishpaphon does. So there's no way they're going to do that. The sovereignty's already needing mana anyway. Those from Dunkelfelder were so eager to see that they were all crammed right up against the barrier. Even for adult knights, there aren't many chances to encounter Fey beasts from other duchies, especially the less famous ones. They must be excited to see how these Fey beasts they've never seen before are defeated. It was then that Gundolf activated the magic circle with his staff. It shone with an intensely bright light, then atop it appeared a huge vibrant tree covered in plenty of rustling leaves. Is that a Fey plant? Of course, Professor Gundolf would be met with a very sharp criticism if he produced a normal tree. But it wasn't moving. Nor was it screaming like an effin, nor did it seem to suck up any mana like a Trombe. Oh, thank God. By all accounts, it appeared to be a plain old tree, not even a fantasy one like a Ruel. I wonder if it's going to sprout a face and start talking, because if not, this just looks like a normal tree. At this rate, I was starting to question whether it was a Fey beast or a Fey plant at all. I've never seen this Fey plant before, I said. What kind is it? In my quest to make new interesting types of paper, I had gone around Ehrenfest asking our Geebs what Fey plants lived in their provinces. My knowledge about their Fey plants about the duchies was very limited, though. Concerned, I squinted at Lenore, who was positioned at the center of the apprentice knife. She would be able to recognize it, surely. Everyone but Judith, form weapons for cutting branches, the same you use when hunting Trombes, Lenore called. Archknights, start building up mana, in order. Alexis, make preparations. She was clearly and very confidently shouting instructions, so he must have known what they were up against. She transformed her staff into a halberd, and while filling it with mana, continued, Judith, at my signal, hit the Gumka with the most powerful magic tool we have. Gumka? What the heck is a Gumka? As everyone knows, after it takes enough damage, it will extend the many branches hidden beneath its leaves. The process will take only a few moments. In that time, cut as many branches as you can, but take care not to touch them. They have thorns that will make your limbs go completely numb. Gumka? Isn't that the rubber tree? I'm sure Ferdinand told me about them once. They're like Trombe, but you can't find them anywhere near Ehrenfest. Ignaz, Marianne, I said, since Gundolf produced a Gumka, doesn't that mean they come from Drwankel, or do they grow somewhere else and he just happens to know about them? I would like to ask about obtaining some Gumka bark. I thought about how they might have an answer since they had been working with Gundolf, but neither of them knew. Well, we'll ask him when we can. If this wasn't a game Fey plant made from Gundolf's mana, I'll be shouting, focus on getting the bark, right about now. I want rubber! I gazed longingly at the Gumka, contemplating all the wondrous things I could create if only we had rubber. But as I was lost in thought, Later rested a hand on my shoulder. Lady Rosamund, you are leaning too far forward, and please take care not to appear too excited when you go to Professor Gundolf to obtain information. If you show as much interest as you are now, he will surely manage to steal much of our intelligence. She was right, there was a very real danger of that happening, but this was the first Gumka I had ever seen, and it had stolen my heart. Please speak with Lenore before you ask Professor Gundolf, Laser continued. She knows enough to have recalled its name and how to defeat it. I am sure she is familiar with where it grows. You're right. I had only thought of asking Gundolf since he had made the Gumka, but Lenore surely knew where it grew as well. There was hope. Don't get your hopes up too much, though, Cornelius warned. If we learn it's a rare Fey plant that can only be found in some other duchy, then you will need to give up on obtaining it. We would need to send a platoon to gather the resources you want, which is entirely unreasonable. You would not want a group of knights from another duchy coming into Ehrenfest, would you? I envisioned Dunkelfelder's knights coming into our duchy to harvest some plant or another, and swiftly agreed. That wasn't something I ever wanted to happen. Perhaps we could trade for the resources then, I suggested, but Cornelius immediately shook his head. I cannot approve of that. I expect you would accept even the most unfavorable conditions to obtain what you desire. My other retainers all agreed. In their words, trading with other duchies was a lot more serious than matters contained within Ehrenfest. I mean, when it comes to getting what I want, I think anything should go. As everyone continued to chide me, I returned to watching the match with a bit of resigned expression. The apprentice knights had already surrounded the gum cut and were wielding the same halberd I had seen them use when hunting trombes. They were cautiously keeping their distance since they didn't know how far its branches would reach. The apprentice arch-knights were still channeling mana into their weapons, which were shining even more brightly than before. Can anyone do that attack? I asked. Yes, it only requires you to collect mana into your weapon and then unleash it. So anyone can manage it with a bit of practice. That said, the power of the attack changes dramatically based on your mana quantity and number of elements. So there is little point in a lay knight or a med knight using it, unless the med knight has about as much mana as an arch knight, I guess. Since you were channeling basically all of your mana into a single attack, it was best to only use it when you knew you could take out the enemy in one blow, or when you had people who could cover you while you chugged rejuvenation potions. Our knights had at their disposal the potions left over for the dedication ritual, so they would probably be fine. Judith, aim for the leaves that are the most overgrown, Lenore ordered. Archknights, do you see where the trunk changes color near the top? At my command, attack that part in order. Understood. Once everyone was prepared, Lenore swung down her arm and cried, Judith! Yeah! From her sling, Judith shot one of the magic tools left over from our game of dinner against Dunkelfelger. It disappeared into the rustling leaves and caused a tremendous explosion. The gum-cut shook as if surprised, and a bunch of thin branches shot out from beneath its leaves. There were probably 30 or 40 of them in total, each with the sharp thorns that Lenore had described at the tip. The knights atop their high beasts swung their halberds around, chopping away at thin branches one after another. This only lasted a few seconds, however, as the branches then retreated back into the central mass of leaves, whereupon they started wiggling like tentacles and trying to grab the nearest apprentice knights. Out of nowhere, the tree had started to look a lot like a jellyfish. And the fact that touching its stingers makes you go numb only reinforces the comparison. So gumka equals tree jellyfish. Very dangerous. I won't forget that. The branches can't be cut when they're retracted, Lenore shouted. Fall back. I'll attack next. Once the apprentice knights had retreated, she swung her halberd with a fierce war cry, launching an iridescent bow of mana straight toward the different colored parts of the gumka's trunk. There was another explosion which caused the gumka to shake violently, but there was no shockwave. Had the attack even done anything? I was watching it wide-eyed at a loss, with the thin branches shot back out. Go! Not letting even a moment go to waste, everyone began swinging their halberds again, trying to sever the remaining branches. Lenore shouted, Natalie, start building up mana, and then carefully watch the knights while downing rejuvenation potions. It seemed they were going to continue using all-out attacks, but were they actually working? I couldn't help feeling worried, but Lenore wasn't hesitating in the slightest with her instructions. Alexis! Yeah! This time Alexis attacked with his mana. There was a really bright light, but again, no shockwave. After weathering the blow, the gumka shot out its branches for the third time. The apprentice knights attacked until they retracted, then backed away in preparation for the next all-out attack. Traugott, prepare. Natalie, go. As instructed, Traugott started building up his mana while Natalie shot out hers. Seeing all these attacks back-to-back helped me see how true it was that one's mana quantity and elements impacted their strength. Although every attack was a variety of colors, they weren't all the same colors, and they struck the gumka with varying degrees of power. That should be the most of the dangerous branches dealt with, Angelica muttered as the gumka responded to Natalie's attacks. There aren't as many coming out now. She looked somewhat antsy, probably because she wanted to join the fight. Judith, use our secret weapon to get rid of the leaves, Lenore shouted. Everyone, keep your distance. Matthias, prepare your mana. Understood. I had expected Traugott to unleash an attack next, but no. Judith took a fist-sized magic tool out from the pouch of her waist and used her sling to propel it toward the gumka. It shot up into the leaves with such ease that it looked as though it had been sucked inside, and then erupted into an explosion louder than any of the mana attacks. The crown of the gumkas burst into flames all at once. What was that? Cornelius cried. They're using magic tools and speed data, Angelica explained. And they weren't the only ones who were so surprised. A stir ran through the entire audience. It reminded me of something Matthias had said, that not many duchies use magic tools for speed dinner. That was a magic tool Hartman made for our dinner match with Dunkelfelger, I explained. It would have been a waste not to use it, so we decided to incorporate it into our inter-duchy tournament strategy. I see it was even more powerful than expected. You were willing to use that against another duchy, Cornelius asked? Talk about merciless. It was our ultimate secret weapon, to be used only if we were on the brink of defeat. The gumka's bushy foliage was burnt away entirely, but that was about it. Although the upper part of the trunk was engulfed in flames, it didn't look all that damaged, and the thinner part was the same as before. Just how strong are gumkas? As I stared out in shock, the very top of the trunk, located a little bit above the lighter color part, began to shine faintly. At the same time, some of the remaining branches began to sway. It was trying to make more of the tentacles we had seen before. We'll take it down before they finish growing. Traugott, Matthias, attack from above. Everyone prepare your shields. Understood. Matthias and Traga sped upward in perfect unison, keeping an eye on each other all the while. Their weapons, which were shining a variety of colors, painted a beautiful arc in the sky above them. They both descended on the Gumka while swinging their halberds, their combined efforts assaulting it with twice as much mana as much of the previous attacks. Rainbow-like light pierced the Fey plant like a bolt of lightning before rupturing into another cacophonous explosion, except this one was almost immediately drowned out by an even louder crackling, as the Gumka's trunk was torn to shreds. Moments later, the Gumka vanished, as did the light of the magic circle that it had come from. The same couldn't be said for the shockwaves, though. Our apprentice knights were still desperately taking cover behind their shields while Raffen made his announcement. Ehrenfest finished. Well done, Sylvester said to the apprentices when they returned from their game. That was great dinner. As it turned out, Ehrenfest's apprentices had made a pretty big impression during their dinner match. While the apprentice knight of other duchies had fumbled and wasted time in the face of the lower-known Fey beasts, ours had attacked confidently and without delay. I never thought someone could be so well read in the Fey creatures of other duchies, Lenore. Your praise honors me, but I was not the only one who recognized the Gumka. The apprentice knights all studied as well, so they would know exactly what to do and could pass along the most important details. She turned to look at them and overflowing of pride. I likely stood out because I was in a position of leadership, but we would have claimed victory no matter who was taking the lead. Plus, our knowledge of Fey creatures will not be lost next year when I graduate, not the year after that. Lenore had compiled her Fey creature research into documents that were now stored in the common room's bookcase, meaning her knowledge could be readily shared with future students as well. She could rest easy knowing that her hard work would benefit Ehrenfest forevermore. As the Ob, I must say that your efforts fill me with pride, Sylvester said. With a nod of agreement, a higher-up of the Knight's Order who was here in Karstad's place stepped forward. Your knowledge was not all that you displayed either. Everyone followed their orders to perfection, and your coordination was superb. I was particularly impressed by the speed and precision in which the lay and men knights dispatched the branches lured out by the archknights. You all fought well enough that I expect you could all join a Trombe hut immediately upon coming of age. It is clear to me how much you have all grown stronger. Continue as you are. Sir. The apprentice knights exchanged proud, accomplished smiles, having been praised even by the Knight's Order. They had worked together and gotten top scores. Everyone, feel free to watch the other duchies play while guarding Charlotte and Rosamund, Sylvester said. Wilfrid, come with me. As I watched them go off to socialize with other duchies, I couldn't help but wonder whether I should have gone with them. Oh, sister, Charlotte giggled, you do not need to be so concerned. This is to help Wilfrid adjust to socializing, and presumably to deal with those who wish to propose to me. She then took my hand and guided me back to the audience stands. We were surrounded by our retainers and apprentice knights, so there was no chance of anyone approaching us. Charlotte smiled from where she was standing beside me and gazed down at the lower portion of the arena. As so many top-ranking duchies have graciously pointed out, Ehrenfest's rise to the duchy rankings is still entirely because of your accomplishments. Our current position cannot be considered stable until we have resolved our internal situation, and my future partner cannot be decided until our nobles have either succeeded or failed in reforming their perspectives. Other duchies still weren't sure whether to accept Ehrenfest as a top-ranking duchy or expect our position to nosedive in the years to come. As a result, the number of men trying to propose to Charlotte was exceedingly large. The pool was just too broad to begin with. It will require a pretty considerable turnabout in opinion, but I would like everyone to accept us as worthy of being a top-ranking duchy before I graduate, Charlotte said. That will make deciding on my partner much easier. It was best for both partners if she married into a duchy that Ehrenfest could wrangle to some degree, but we weren't yet sure who could end up in our league. You know, Charlotte, never before have I considered Ehrenfest as being in particularly dire straits. Because we stayed neutral throughout the Civil War, we did not need to undergo any major changes, unlike the duchies that were defeated. However, I expect this purge to force a significant change one way or the other. The purge of the former Veronica faction, and the punishments being doled out to many of its remaining members, had surely plunged Ehrenfest into a state of chaos. We needed to use this opportunity to reform our collective awareness and make things more efficient. However, I continued, this matter can wait until we return to Ehrenfest. For now, let us enjoy the rest of the Interduchy tournament. Yes, sister. We returned to watching the dinner matches and marveled at one unfamiliar Fey creature after another. It made for a very enjoyable experience, and the educated apprentice knights taught me the proper method for defeating each summon. You all sure have learned a lot, huh? Cornelius said to the knights, impressed. Lenore must be an excellent teacher. Lenore grinned from ear to ear. She and Cornelius were giving off such boyfriend and girlfriend reunited at last vibes that for a brief moment, I thought it was a good thing that Daniel wasn't here to see them. Yeah, he'd be so freaking jealous. And so mad because he didn't have anybody. Oh, that reminds me, I said. Angelica, you came here to see how much Traga has grown, right? How was he? Some listened with bated breath, eager to witness a new Royal Academy love story tale in the making. How did Angelica see Traugott now, after she had said that her partner needed to be stronger than Cornelius? Angelica placed a hand on her cheek and smiled. He was an excellent reminder for me to appreciate just how strong Lord Bonifacius really is. Alas, it seemed that things would not develop as everyone hoped. This concludes the last game of Data, Roffin said. We would now like to demonstrate a ritual performed by Dunkelfelger's knights. Right on cue, a band of blue capes swooped down toward the bottom of the arena with an emphatic battle cry. They did a lap of the grounds like the apprentices had done before playing Ditter, then dismounted and dismissed their high beasts. Dunkelfelger stood at the center of the knights, who formed a circle around him. Their movements were highly practiced. I could tell that every single person was standing in their assigned place. Nobody had their staffs out yet, but Dunkelfelger alone was holding a weapon. Leidenschaft's spear was gripped firmly in his right hand. He must have borrowed it from Dunkelfelger's temple. Yeah, because I highly doubt he created that thing. The face stones in the spear were blue, even though the dedication ritual had just come and gone, meaning he had probably engulfed it or supplied it with his own mana for the introductory tournament. The Ob thumped the butt of the spear against the ground and said in a powerful voice, "There are many adult knights who do not know this ritualistic dance, as they were never taught it by Roffin. We do not believe its results can be fully understood through a research presentation, thus we have determined it best for Dunkelfelger's Knight Order to provide a demonstration. Behold a true ritual and divine instrument which had so nearly been forgotten by the changing times." A cheer louder than expected resounded throughout the arena, taking me completely by surprise. I gazed around and saw that every single duchy seemed interested. Pretty much the entire audience was crowding at the very front of these stands, eager to see Dunkelfelger's ritual. Under normal circumstances, one would perform the ritual and obtain its blessings days before they are needed, so as to train with and grow accustomed to their effects, and to recover mana in preparation for the upcoming battle. Too many blessings can make a person lose control of their bodies, as we had seen with Ehrenfest's apprentices, and normal rejuvenation potions didn't restore mana immediately. However, the Ob continued, Dunkelfelger's knights no longer need such leeway. Through extensive practice, we have calculated roughly how much mana is required to obtain the blessings, and by increasing the number of participants in the ritual, we have reduced the mana cost to a reasonable level. Apparently, this would allow them to perform the demonstration even without rejuvenation potions. It was just one surprise after another. I could see why Segonde had resented me a little for causing this mess. In addition, this is a true divine instrument borrowed from the temple. Borrowed. Yeah, right. Leidenschaft's spear, Dunkelfelger declared, grasping the instrument firmly in both hands. He then began filling it with mana, at which point the entire spear, not just the head, turned blue and began to crackle with electric light. What in the world is going on? You can do that with a divine instrument from the temple? The nobles basically never went to the temple, nor did they have any other opportunities to see the divine instruments up close. So there were some loud cries of surprise when Leidenschaft's spear practically sprang to life. Grant power to those of us going into battle, Dunkelfelger roared, his spear glowing an even brighter blue. At the same time, the knights all shouted Lawns and turned their staffs into spears. We are those who offer prayers and gratitude to the gods who have created the world, came the familiar introduction. Then at once they all thumped their spears against the ground. Grant us power so that we might obtain victory. Grant us Angr's mighty power, which is second to none. Grant us speed so that we might obtain victory. Grant us Styfbrist's speed, which is second to none. They twirled their spears before once again striking them against the ground. Then they scraped the tips against their face-stone armor, creating a loud metallic screeching sound. It was the same process I had seen before, but the adults were far more experienced than the apprentices. Not only were they acting in perfect unison, they even performed the dance smoothly and with grace despite the intensity of their actions. The ritual was by no means new to me, but this one felt entirely different. Fight, Dunkelfelder declared, raising Leidenschaft's spear high above his head. The surrounding knights let out cheers as they did the same with their own weapons. And a pillar of blue light shot up into the sky. Some of the blessing then rained down on them, while a portion flew somewhere elsewhere. Where is it going? Seriously, where is it going? This was a familiar sight for rituals performed in the Royal Academy, but not those performed elsewhere. There were some shocked exclamations even from among Dunkelfelger's audience, and Ehrenfest's adults similarly stared at the blue light in disbelief. So that's one of those pillars of light, huh? Sylvester muttered, having at some point moved to stand behind us. It was one of those things you could read about, but wouldn't truly understand until you saw it for yourself. Charlotte nodded. They invariably occur when rituals are performed in the Royal Academy. They're very strange, aren't they? Even among the students, not many had seen this light before. Outside of Ehrenfest and Dunkelfelger had only been witnessed by the Archduke candidates and archnoble apprentices who had participated in the dedication ritual, and those who lived in dormitories were relatively close to Dunkelfelger's, I supposed. I see. If Rosamund has been causing stuff like this to happen left and right, it's no surprise that people keep going on about her being a saint, or the avatar of a goddess or whatever. Huh, there goes the title right there. Title of this act. Roffin then created a fade creature which Dunkelfelger's knights swiftly attacked. Their speed, power, and resilience in controlling so many blessings put them in an infinitely higher level than the students, like the earth compared to the sky. To wrap up the demonstration, Hannelore stepped forward and performed the ceremony for offering their victory to the gods, wherein the blessings were returned. She turned her staff into Verfirmer's staff and spun it through the air in a gentle circle. The crashing of waves could be heard as mana rose from the knights and simmered up into the sky. Thus concludes our ritual, which has been passed down through Dunkelfelger's history, Dunkelfelger declared, the drained spear in hand, his voice resounding throughout the arena. The audience erupted in cheers of awe and excitement. Oh, here we go, the award ceremony. The award ceremony will be performed next, Roffin announced. Students descend to the grounds after 5th bell rings. He was instructing the audience with a voice-amplifying tool, so even the bustling crowds still excited about Dunkelfelger's ritual were able to hear him. We should clean up in the meantime, I said. Just like last year, the short gap between the end of dinner and 5th bell was used for a quick cleanup. The apprentice scholars put away the important magic tools and such they had taken out for their presentations, while the apprentice attendants put away the teacups and sweets they had been put out for guests. While everyone else was working busily, I sat down and got some rest. I had been on my feet the entire time I was watching dinner, so my legs were aching. But I'm not feeling sick or lightheaded, so yeah, I really am healthy now. Come 5th bell, everyone stopped cleaning and started making their way to the grounds for the award ceremony. Seeing everyone descend on their high beasts was breathtaking. The sky was filled with capes of every color. Wolfried, Charlotte, I'll entrust you with guiding everyone, I said. If every duchy student's population descended at once, the sky would get too crowded, which sometimes caused struggles and small fights to break out. My siblings had taken charge last year, so having them do it again felt like the best way to avoid trouble. Sure, Wolfried replied. You can stay sitting with Father. You'll need all the rest you can get before Uncle lectures you again later. Yeah. I'd rather you say he's going to praise me. The compliments come first, you know. Or so I wanted to believe. But he had tried to pinch my cheeks the second we had reunited. If even Wilfrid thought I was guaranteed a lecture, I probably needed to come up with some kind of countermeasures. How about the moment he tries to scold me, I'll stick a spoonful of consomme in his mouth. No, he would stop you from doing that. Or maybe I could start a rebellion using the shoe bill to drown him out and return fire. Yeah, that should work. I would love to see that. As I was ironing out the details of my battle plan, Sylvester poked my cheek. He looked a little nostalgic as he said, No need to strain yourself, Rosemine. As long as you get the king's praise while you're up on the stage, Ferdinand won't be able to lecture you. Use it as your shield. Besides, this is the 3rd year you've come first in class, but because of us, it's only your first award ceremony. I thought back to what Ferdinand had told me about his Royal Academy days. Coming first in class had granted him a rare, precious opportunity to get praise from his father. You go too far sometimes, Sylvester continued, but you're still working as hard as you can. I'm sure he'll be nice to you, at least on this one occasion. He hasn't read your reports to Ehrenfest, so he shouldn't know the details of all the things you've done. The lecture can wait until you're back home. His reasoning hurt a little. Well, I did mention quite a lot in my letters to him. Am I still going to be okay? You only wrote what was safe for Aaron's box inspection, right? Pretty sure you're fine, unless you willingly said more than you needed to. I didn't respond. No way could I admit that I'd more or less signed my own death warrant in shining ink. My silence must have spoken volumes, though, because... Oh, that's your fault, then. Enjoy the lecture. He's like, oh, well, you did it to yourself. Too bad. Anyway, you should get going. When the king praises you, just say, this is a great honor. Don't be rude, and please don't say anything incriminating. Understood? After warning me over and over again, Sylvester finally saw me off. I descended to the grounds by high beasts with retainers all around me. It was nice that I could tell whether I needed to go just by the mass of colored capes. Upon landing my panda bus, I lined up with the rest of Ehrenfest. Wilfred and Charlotte had descended first, and the others must have gathered soon after. They were all chatting about how they hoped we could get plenty of honor students this year. Eventually, the royal family arrived, surrounded by a platoon of black cape knights who were carefully eyeing their surroundings. Yeah, we don't need this again. The royal high beasts descended to the stage one by one, their wings spread wide. First to land were the king and his first wife, then Sigiswald, Adolphine, the Halich, whatever, Anastasius, and Eglantine. I didn't really notice before, but now that they're all together like this, pretty much the entire royal family came to the dedication ritual, huh? The only ones who hadn't attended were the king's wives. On reflection, maybe the ritual really had been crazy. Aeglade, the god of life, grants his harsh judgment each winter, and your gathering here today means you have all endured it, the king said, beginning the speech in the same way as last year. Here's hoping it doesn't begin the same way as last year, too. His voice, which was resounding throughout the arena thanks to a sound-amplifying magic tool, sounded stronger and more lively than during the dedication ritual. Assuming it wasn't just my imagination, I was glad to know he was feeling better. I shall grant this year's dinner awards, declared a Black Cape man who was probably a light sovereign noble. It was time for the top 3 duchies to be announced. First place, Dunkelfelger. Dunkelfelger's placement was both fair and magnificently well-deserved. Not only had they learned to obtain blessings on their own, but they had also done an incredible amount of research into these fey creatures. Nobody could deny the speed with which they had completed speed at which they completed their match, so everyone acknowledged their victory. Second place, Klassenberg. Klassenberg also knew a lot about fey creatures, and its students had attacked without hesitation. They surely had years and years of research available to them. On top of that, luck had absolutely been on their side. Their fey beasts hadn't been tough or hard to beat like the Gumka, so they had breezed through the match. Their placement was only half due to skill, in my opinion. Third place, Ehrenfest. Representatives come forth. Immediately a buzz ran through the arena. Ehrenfest had come in 6th in the mock battle, but was now being awarded 3rd place. Not once in Ehrenfest's history had it ranked so highly during the Interduchy tournament. This is only because they know the fey creatures ahead of time, came a voice from the front. Fey plants were a critical part of the research with Dwanko, after all. They surely asked Professor Gundalf to summon a creature of their choice. No, we did not. A group of students began to giggle maliciously, and an ominous feeling spread through the crowd. Lenore, Matthias, and the others were all wearing stiff expressions. If I wanted to protest, if we were skilled enough to perform such bribery ahead of time, Ehrenfest would not be mocked for its poor diplomacy skills. I would say dinner results are fair and square. The better player wins. But the insults were coming from the front, which meant they were from top-ranking duchies. As I debated whether to speak up or swallow my words, someone from another duchy intervened. Nobody could rig their match in such a manner. The professors do not know whom they will produce a fey beast for until right before the tournament. I find it off-putting that you would demean others simply because your own duchy's knights were so incompetent. Ooh. Another voice spoke out in agreement. Luck decides which fey creatures a duchy will receive, and Ehrenfest was made to fight especially challenging ones this year and the last. Anyone with eyes can recognize their strengths. Not right, that's exactly what I wanted to say. The apprentice knights who had taken lessons with us and watched the game carefully knew just how hard it was to take down a Gumka. We had now had several duchies in our corner, which made these who had so openly criticized us fall silent. At least some people understand, Lenore marked with a smile, eliciting happy nods of agreement from Ehrenfest's other apprentice knights. Agreed. She and Alexis took the stage as our duchy's representatives. To think when I was a first year, our apprentice knights barely ever cooperated and were shambles against Dunkelfelger. Everyone sure has been working hard. They had studied to make up for their weakness, cast aside the shackles of our duchy's factions, and endured brutal training, but we couldn't forget the role that Karstedt and Bonifacius had played too. It was because of their heroic efforts that the apprentice knights had grown stronger, even if our wizened elders had mostly been acting to present a future of disarray after learning that the Royal Academy's changing standards were impacting the quality of new recruits. Your battles were glorious, Roblet said, commanding the apprentices as commander of the Sovereign Knights. I pray that you stay this path and consider joining the Sovereign Knights Order. Nope! The representatives returned with clear blue face stones that looked a lot like medals. This is my first time receiving such an award, Lenore said. I smiled at his grandfather who agreed to train everyone despite being in retirement. I am sure he will be pleased. Indeed. After the chatter quieted down, it was time for the research awards. These had the greatest influence on noble society and were given out based on which projects the sovereign nobles found the most impressive. First place, Dunkelfelger and Ehrenfest joint research on rituals and divine protections. Second place, Glissenmeyer's research on mana-amplifying magic tools. Third place, Ahrensbach and Ehrenfest joint research on making magic tools more mana-efficient. Haha. Couldn't say that we didn't do anything. Haha. The speaker then asked for the representative of each project to come forth. I didn't know what to do. I was supposed to be representing Ehrenfest this time, but I couldn't be in 2 places at once. Wolfried, could you be our representative for our research with Dunkelfelger? I need to go up for our work with Ahrensbach. No. Hold on. You were central to that research. Either to go just as our first place representative or representatives for both awards. I don't want to steal my little sister's accomplishments. Thank you. So, having no other choice, I approached the stage with Lenore as my guard knight. Is it really okay for Wolfried to stay behind? I asked her. Of course, Lady Rosamund, she replied. You're the one who did the research after all. Lestalot was acting as Dunkelfelger's representative. He was expressionless, but he seemed more deflated than usual and wouldn't make eye contact with me. I could imagine Segonde had given him a particularly harsh scolding after her conversation with us. Staying silent didn't seem like a good idea. Isn't this a surprise, Lord Lestalot? I never thought we would come in first place. I did, Lestalot replied. He shot me with a glance, then sighed and stood up straight. In an instant, his glumness vanished, replaced with the airs of a proper Dunkelfelger Archduke candidate. Rosamund, you... And I did not expect our research to come in third, came an unexpected voice. How delightful, Lady Rosemine. What? I said Lady Detlinde. I didn't have a clue why she was joining us on stage as a representative, and with a shameless look on her face, too. I searched for Raymond baffled, but he was nowhere to be seen. Should Raymond not be Arensbach's representative? I said, I don't believe anyone else from Arensbach contributed to the research whatsoever. Detlinde met my doubts with a peal of refined laughter. Oh ho ho, Raymond fears the public eye, so I agreed to take his place. And as my fiancé oversaw this research, I saw no reason why I should not act as Arensbach's representative. It was definitely an excuse. She'd probably been so forceful that Raymond had just gave in. Geez, Raymond, you need to market yourself more at times like this. Feeling angry at Detlinde for stealing someone else's credit, I went and stood in line to get next to Lestalot. My apologies, Lord Lestalot. What were you saying? Nothing. Pay it no mind. An unfamiliar man stepped out from the platoon beside the royal family. The knight commander had addressed the apprentice knights during their portion of the award ceremony. This is probably a representative of the scholars. Dunkelfelger, Ehrenfest, your research has made us see the rituals once abandoned in time in a new light and illuminated the requirements for obtaining divine protections from the gods. The man said, it is fascinating beyond words that having more protections changes the efficacy of one's mana usage. As the royal family's participation in the rituals should demonstrate, this research will play a key role in Jurgen Smith's future. He went on to detail the parts of our research that inspired the most awe, noting in particular our findings on how one's divine protections affected one's mana expenditure. He then said that he hoped we would continue our work so that growing students would get as many divine protections as possible. That said, is there really much more we can research? This is your prize, the man concluded. Continue striving for the sake of our country. He handed me a light yellow face stone, which was noticeably different from the metal that Lenore had received. It was heavy in my hands. I got Lenore to hold on to my medal for me, then moved to stand next to Detlinde while the sovereign scholar spoke to Glissenmeyer, the second-place winner. Third place, Arensbach, Ehrenfest. Your research has made it possible to run intensive magic tools more efficiently. Many of your innovations are superior to current methods, and the potential applications reach far beyond what was demonstrated today. We pray for even further improvements and optimization. So the sovereign scholars were more interested in the basics of Raymond's research, mana conservation, than in the magic tools themselves. Thinking about it, every single award-winning presentation had been about making magic tools more efficient or increasing one's mana capacity. The mana crisis really was a matter of grave importance here in Jurgensmith. We returned to the crowd with both medals, at which point the winners of the next awards were announced. Those were for the duchies that had received the most visitors and served as the best hosts. Unfortunately, Ehrenfest didn't place this time. The results instead matched the duchy rankings, with Klassenberg in first, Dunkelfelger in second, and Dronkel in third. I thought Ehrenfest did rather well this year, I said, pursing my lips, but Brunhilde shook her head with an air of ambivalence. Our duchy simply lacks an appropriate number of attendants and archduke candidates. We are forced to leave guests waiting, which lowers their satisfaction. Even coming close to the top scorers is going to be beyond us. Our Swedes' trends and the appeals of early business discussions meant we had plenty of means to draw in customers, but we didn't have enough people to host them all. Apparently this kind of thing was outright impossible if your duchy didn't have a large enough population to begin with. I simply had to agree with Brunhilde when she said we couldn't make more apprentice attendants appear out of thin air. Think about how to increase our population as quickly as possible, even if only by a little. Once all the awards related to the Interduchy tournament had been given out, it was finally time for the Royal Academy's honor students to be announced. In a sense, all the achievements thus far have been for entire duchies, whereas these were for individuals. I shall announce this year's top students, came a voice. Those names stepped forward. Among the 6 years, an arch scholar from Dronkel had come first in class overall. I thought the title would go to an archduke candidate, so that came as quite a surprise to me. Lestalot was then announced as having come first in class for the archduke candidate course. Another surprise, considering how obsessed he had been with illustrating a dinner story. Lord Lestalot's grades are so high that he had beat all the other archduke candidates in his year. That's news to me. Had he focused on studying instead of obsessing over art, I thought he might have come first in class overall. I didn't dwell on that thought for much longer, however, as Lenore and Alexis were named as honor students. Well done, Alexis, Wolfried said. Congratulations, Lenore, I added. It is all thanks to you, Lady Rosemine, Lenore replied. She then headed toward the stage with Alexis while everyone praised them. Next were the 5th years. The first-in-class student was announced first, and the honor students were listed in order of the duchy rankings. Ehrenfest the 8th, Brunhilde, Natalie, and Matthias. Brunhilde, Matthias, congratulations, you two. Matthias had been recognized as an honor student last year as well, but this was a new experience for Brunhilde. Her amber eyes widened in surprise, then grew teary as a smile spread across her lips. This is my first time being made an honor student. Indeed, I said, you have worked very hard interacting with top-ranking duchies. I'm glad your efforts have been recognized. I am honored, Lady Rosemine, Brunhilde said, her cheeks flushing with happiness. Her pretty smile made her look more flowery than usual. An honor student, Matthias uttered. In stark contrast to Brunhilde, he didn't look very pleased at all. Maybe he had set his heart on something higher? But a med noble being selected as an honor student was already an exceedingly rare feat, I thought. He should have been more happier. You should delight in this achievement, Matthias, I said. As your lady, I would not be more proud of you, or could not be more proud of you. After a moment of stunned silence, Matthias knelt. He took my hand and, looking at me sincerely with his blue eyes, respectfully pressed his forehead against it. It was the most extreme form of gratitude a noble could express. What? Matthias, what are you... Lady Rosemine, this honor would not be mine if you had not so considerably rescued us. You have my honor and my complete and utter gratitude, my lady. Please stop. This kind of gratitude is hard for my heart. And you're standing out so much. I understand. So go and join the others, I said, frantically pulling my hand away. Everyone is waiting. By the time Brunhilde, Matthias, and Natalie made it on stage, the 4th years were already being called. Lorenz and Ignaz were recognized as honor students, too. Not you too! Lady Rosemine, I would like to kneel and offer my utmost gratitude as well, Lorenz said. Teasingly, would you permit me? I glared at him. If you save your gratitude for where there are fewer people around, I'll make sure you get an extra helping of meat on your plate come dinner time. I understood he replied, holding back laughter as he took the stage with Ignaz, who had received some congratulations from Wilfried. Next, the 3rd year who placed first in class overall, said the announcer, Rosemine, the Archduke candidate of Ehrenfest. I also placed first in class for the Archduke candidate and scholar courses. Some were in awe of hearing my name over and over, while others groaned as if to say, again? Shortly after, the honor students were announced, and Wilfried of Ehrenfest was among them. Oh, congratulations, Lady Rosemine, Feline exclaimed. At last, your first award ceremony. Go forth and accept your honors. She and Lazetta were a lot more excited about my achievements than I was. Rosemine, your hand, Wilfried said. He then started escorting me to the stage while my retainer saw me off, smiling. I could tell from all the whispers that we were drawing a lot of attention. So that's the Ehrenfest girl, huh? The Archduke candidate who invited the royal family to a dedication ritual. She missed the past 2 award ceremony because of something or other, right? Wait, am I drawing attention for the wrong reasons? From what I could tell, people were whispering about everything except my being first in class. Their hushed voices sent a shiver down my spine, and I started to wish that I had skipped out on this one, too. Straighten your back, Wilfried said quietly, coming to a stop alongside the other honor students. You'll be alone from this point on. With my hand now free, I started to climb the stage, making sure to move as gracefully as I could. After reaching the top, I gazed around and saw that I was drawing as much attention from the guardians up in the stands as I was from the students in the audience. The weight of having so many eyes on me was intense, but I stood up straight and tried to maintain my nicest smile. This is nerve-wracking. I really should have sat this one out. I was already drained, but when I reached the royals, Eglantine gave me the most spectacular smile. I suddenly felt renewed, and it was with that newfound vigor that I knelt in front of the king. Oh boy, this is going to be interesting. Yeah, this is her first time to actually getting praise from the king besides the dedication ritual. And that was her first time meeting the king. The king looked down at me in turn. His face seemed much healthier than before, and there was more color to his cheeks. There was kindness in his eyes, and the tone in which he spoke was especially peaceful. Rosemine, Archduke candidate of Ehrenfest, you have obtained extraordinarily high grades for 3 consecutive years, and this year you participated in joint research with Dunkelfelder, Derwanko, and Ahrensbach. Your hard work and contributions to Jürgen Smith's future are worth immense praise. Maybe it was because everyone always scolded me for causing trouble or doing things I shouldn't, but having the king himself praise me and say I was making meaningful contributions to the country made me feel so warm inside. And it was clear that he was speaking from the heart rather than just being polite. I'm helpful. Everything I've done has been helpful. It is my honor to have aided the Zent, I replied. Great applause filled the arena. After securing the king's permission, I stood up and turned to the audience. Not just the students, but also the adults in the stands were clapping for me. Among them, I could see Sylvester the Knights and the parents. The opposite end of the arena, standing amongst Ahrensbach's Valakesha, spotted faint traces of ochre. I squinted my eyes in an attempt to get a better look and saw Ferdinand, Eckert, and Justice all clapping as well. Sylvester and Ferdinand are happy for me too. Oh, here's hoping that, this will lessen your lecture a little bit. There were so many people here praising my results in the Royal Academy. In truth, it was something I'd never experienced before. My anxiety was quickly replaced with absolute joy. Uh-oh. And as my heart warmed, I was overcome with a feeling like everything in the world was good. I thought for a second she was going to do a blessing. Right, I'll work hard next year too. The award ceremony had restored my hope and feelings of optimism. Oh, come on. Really? I gotta wait till next time? Oh well. I'll see you guys in the next one.